Hello, welcome to Ralph the Movie Maker's Best and Worst Movies of 2021. Sorry for the delay, but I've been working on this video for a long time, and it's finally here. So before we start, here's just a couple little things I want to say. First of all, I know what you're thinking. No, this list is not a joke. It's not sarcastic or ironic. This is my genuine list of movies that I liked from that year. This is my top 30 from that year. Second of all, there's going to be some, comments saying this movie isn't from 2021. It came out in the US in 2022, actually, or came out in 2020. There's always going to be a couple movies like that. One movie that's on my list is The Worst Person in the World. Some people will count that for 2022 because they saw it in 2022. Some people will count it as 2021. There's other movies like that. Titan, Zola, which I put on my 2020 list because I saw it at a film festival in 2020, but most people saw it in 2021. So, point is, don't overthink that. It's just my list. Some people will put certain things on their list for certain years. Some people will put Marcel the Shell as a 2021 movie. I saw it in 2022. It doesn't matter. That's the point. Another thing I want to say, there's a couple movies that I didn't get to see from that year. I made a list of 30. There were a couple runner-ups too that I thought were really good. But there's always just a couple things I miss. I feel like I saw plenty though. I feel like I saw plenty of movies to make a good list. Some movies I missed though that I heard were really good. Souvenir Part 2. I didn't even see Part 1. Private Chat. What the hell was that one? Bergman Island. Yeah, so there's always stuff. There's others, too, that I missed. I just didn't have time. I didn't get to see them. And I had to make time to see other movies that, were bad, but whatever. I'll get to see these eventually. So I guess that's it. I guess that's all I have to say. Also, yeah, don't get too particular about, the numbering of everything. Actually, this movie is slightly better than this movie, but you put it... It doesn't matter. So... just enjoy the video, enjoy the list, and thanks for watching. I bought a lot of these on Blu-ray and 4K. Let's begin. Let's get started here. We're all set. Number 30, Malignant. One of the reasons Malignant sets itself apart from other horror movies is its unique and innovative story. The story follows a woman uncovering her past and the death of a family member, and it gets more disturbing from there, but I'm not going to say much more about it because I don't want to spoil it. It looked great, had really cool practical effects that looked sick. This is a really campy horror film. It becomes like John Wick or something, like the amount of action at the end. It becomes like an action film, and it's super gory. One of the most satisfying strengths of the final action sequence in Malignant is how it pays off that build-up that has occurred throughout the film. The audience has been invested in these characters and their journey, and that final action sequence provides the resolution and the closure that the audience has been craving. The ending is both satisfying and frightening, and it leaves a lasting impression. One of the key skills that James Wan brought to this movie and this final action scene was his expertise in directing scenes like this, like Aquaman, which is not a movie I really liked, but one of the strongest aspects of that movie were those action scenes. Those were pretty cool. And he was able to showcase his ability to craft large-scale, big-budget action scenes like that. This experience was invaluable in creating the final action scene in Malignant. This movie is a fresh approach on the horror genre. It offers a suspenseful and haunting story that's unsettling. The film is visually stunning, with every shot carefully crafted to deliver the sense of unease and suspense, offering a visual experience that is unlike anything else in this genre.
Malignant.
The Lost Daughter, directed by Maggie Gyllenhaal. This is my favorite film of Maggie Gyllenhaal's. It's also her only film. The film is based on an Elena Ferranti book and follows the story of Lita, played by Olivia Colman, who is taking a vacation in Greece only to find herself struggling with paranoia and awkwardness. For a directorial debut, this is a very well-made movie. The film effectively conveys the character's internal struggles and the sense of uncertainty. The look of the film is very haunting and adds to the unnerving atmosphere. The technical aspects of the film are impressive. They captured the beauty of Greece, and the score really amplified the emotion of the story. One of the standout elements of this film, of course, is Coleman's performance. Her performance is powerful, and she really brings that character to life. It leaves it open to the audience to interpret her actions and her motivations. Jessie Buckley was also great in this movie, so was Dakota Johnson, Ed Harris, even Paul Mescal in what I think is the first movie I saw him in. The film has themes of motherhood, expectations placed on women, and the impact of childhood experiences on adults. Overall, you really shouldn't miss this movie. It's on Netflix, so it's easy to see. I don't have much more to say about it aside from that. It's just a very well done film, and I hope you check it out at some point. Number 28 is Lamb from A24. This is a weird movie directed by Valdemar Johansson. It tells the story of Maria and Ingvar, a rural farming couple living in a remote and frozen landscape. They're unhappy, barely exchanging words or showing any signs of joy. However, they are soon blessed with the arrival of a half-lamb, half-human creature that they name Ada. The film explores themes of grief, motherhood, and mankind's relationship with nature. This is kind of an independent movie and a drama, and for that, I thought the CGI and the special effects were actually really great. The creatures believably created with the help of CGI, puppetry, and real animals. The film's visuals are immersive, seen through the spooky and foggy lens of cinematographer Eli Aronson. The visuals are reminiscent of a Bela Tarr film, who is also an executive producer on this film. Noomi Rapace delivers a really great and expressive performance. Despite its relative lack of depth, the film leaves a unique aftertaste and an impression on the viewer, with its haunting themes and its surreal imagery. It's not a conventional film. It won't be for everyone. It's one of those movies that's kind of supposed to be divided. There's nothing wrong with that. But it's thought-provoking and well worth seeing if you're a fan of unconventional, avant-garde cinema. Yeah, I had no issue with it there. I thought it was a pretty, disturbing film, actually. It kind of stuck with me a couple days after seeing it. So yeah, I definitely like this movie. Saint Maude. The movie is about a nurse who cares for this woman who is dying. The nurse is also a crazy religious woman. Jennifer L. as the sick woman. I thought she was good in this movie, but the star of the movie was Morthath Clark, who is in every scene, and I thought she was great in this movie. I thought she carried it. It's very creepy, but it's also a smart horror film, which is usually what I want and doesn't rely on jump scares. I would recommend Saint Maude.
All the good girls go to hell.
Coda. Enjoyed this film. It's about deaf people. This wasn't the worst Best Picture selection for the Oscars, I will say that. It's got some good aspects to it, good performances. It definitely had some kind of, emotional resonance with me. It did work, as a drama. Despite all my criticisms, I still really like the film, and I get why it got picked for all those awards during that award season. Troy Kotsur, I thought he was really great in this movie. Same with Marlee Matlin. I really enjoyed Eugenio Derbez as the music teacher. I thought he was really great considering how much attention it got. He was kind of thrown to the sidelines. I thought he was great in this movie. Anyway, that's all I got to say about Coda. The Suicide Squad. A group of has-been superheroes get together and go on a funny adventure. I reviewed this already, so I don't need to say much about it. Just go check it out. I also really enjoyed Peacemaker. I did watch that. I really enjoyed it. The Humans. A group of people get together for dinner and they talk. I guess this makes the movie sound kind of boring, except it isn't. It's actually really good. I enjoyed Richard Jenkins. I thought Stephen Yeun was really good. I really enjoyed Jane Howdyshell. I think that's how you say her name. That's at least, how it's spelled. I thought she was really great, too. The film is a slow burn, but it's a well-crafted story with strong performances. Check out The Humans.
Oh, do that at a funeral day.
Next up on my list is Petit Mama, which is from the same director as Portrait of a Lady on Fire, which made my 2019 list. And I really enjoyed this film as well. It's a bit short. It's only an hour and something minutes, an hour, 10 minutes, something like that. Petit Maman is a magical and heartwarming film about childhood and the special bond between mothers and daughters. Director Céline Sciamma has once again delivered a visually stunning and emotionally charged story that is sure to stay with you. Although it's short, I think it's going to leave an impression. I enjoyed the simplicity of the story and it felt very naturalistic. It's the greatest movie I've ever seen! Be sure to check it out. No sudden move. Benicio del Toro and Don Cheadle are criminals trying to rob a house, but then they're caught in a bigger crime, and then a bunch of other actors show up because it's a Steven Soderbergh movie. The story itself is very unpredictable, which is what I really liked about this movie. That's a quality I like about certain movies, is that you don't know where they're going, and this is certainly a movie like that. You don't know where it's going, who's going to get killed, or who's going to double-cross who, and you also really like these characters. I thought the cast was great. Don Cheadle was much better in this movie than he was in Space Jam from that year. Of course, that's to be expected. And yeah, I would recommend No Sudden Move. I really enjoyed this movie.
'Cause I'ma get what's mine.
Luca from Pixar. I think compared to a lot of other kids animated movies coming out these days, this movie is a little more subtle. It's much more of a straightforward drama, and I really like this film for that. I like the characters. I thought it was funny. I enjoyed the animation. I enjoyed the dad character and his daughter. I enjoyed, the Italian stuff, like the making pasta, and there's parts of the score I really like. The character designs were really great in this movie, and I thought they were just very likable. The design of the dad character being so huge and missing one arm, having a giant mustache, always having the same expression on his face. I mean, there's just so much about him I can point to that is distinct and memorable about his design. And it never went too far into being unrealistic either. Like, it had this kind of grounded tone the whole movie. The design of the setting and the locations, the lighting, the stakes are very low. It's mainly just about the friendship between these characters. And that's what really works about it. It's simple, and it's just very sweet. They were very fun characters, and I hope I get to see them again one day in a short or something. Number 20, No Time to Die, which was a pretty good movie about James Bond, and he has to fight Rami Malek, who has half his face burnt, and there's also like a bunch of action. I think there was some resolution and some like redemption to his character. There's good Daniel Craig James Bond movies, and there's also bad ones. There's ones I don't like, there's ones I find boring, like Spectre. This one worked, and a trademark of the bad Bond films is that they use action as a crutch, and it doesn't really serve the story. And here, I liked how much character stuff there was going on, and there's a lot of dialogue, and I also like how grounded the action was. Like, Daniel Craig is not doing crazy shit all the time. There's some things he does that are crazy, but then there's like an action scene in a forest, and he's just shooting cars. Much more grounded than something you'd see in Quantum of Solace, where he's like flying a fucking plane and has a good bad guy, Rami Malek. I really liked Rami Malek in the film. I think they balanced that tone perfectly. It's just corny enough to be like entertaining and feel like it's actually respecting the Bond brand, which is not like Bourne. It's far more campy. It's one of the highest grossing of last year. I feel like that's actually deserved. Like, it's actually one of those high grossing movies that was like pretty good and pretty entertaining to watch. The Tragedy of Macbeth, starring Denzel Washington and Frances McDormand. The story is about Macbeth trying to kill the king so he can become the king, and then they say a bunch of other stuff that most people are not going to understand, but that's fine because Shakespeare doesn't really matter if you understand what they're saying. This retelling of the story is very stylized with the black and white, the 4x3. Catherine Hunter as the witches.
Look what I have. Show me. Show me.
It's some really creepy acting. She does such a good job in that role. It's one of the best performances I've seen from that year. The worst person in the world. No, not Andrew Tate. This lady. Why is she the worst person in the world? Well, you're gonna have to watch the movie to find out. The film is structured into chapters and follows the journey of Julie, a young woman in her 30s trying to figure out her emotional wants and needs. Renate Reinsve was very good in this movie also. She showcases the character's growth and evolution throughout the film. Julie is torn between her love for Axel, a cartoonist who's over a decade older than her, and her need to pursue her own happiness and goals. The Worst Person in the World is a film directed by Norwegian filmmaker Joachim Trier, who brings his unique and captivating style to this film. The Worst Person in the World is enlivened by Trier's direction and the memorable music of Harry Nilsson, creating a high-spirited atmosphere. I was expecting something more straightforward, and I'm glad I didn't get that. It had an interesting style that actually kept it engaging. Overall, I recommend this film. The Power of the Dog, a beautifully crafted Western directed by Jane Campion. This film is a contemporary Western that sets itself apart from many other films in this genre with its slow pacing and focus on character development. Some remarkable performances from the cast, such as Kirsten Dunst, Jesse Plemons, and Benedict Cumberbatch. The cinematography is breathtaking, capturing the vast landscapes of the American West and adding to the film's rich atmosphere. This deliberate pacing pays off as the film explores broader themes of benevolence, introspection, sexuality, and family. In conclusion, Power of the Dog is one of the best movies of the year. Its performances and exploration of complex themes make it a truly remarkable cinematic experience. I highly recommend this. Come On, Come On is a film from A24 and directed by Mike Mills. The film is a powerful character study that explores the themes of creativity, relationships, and resilience. Come On is a visually stunning film that stands out thanks to its beautiful black and white cinematography, capturing the mood and the different settings the film takes place in very well. If you're a fan of A24's brand of thought-provoking, character-driven dramas, this film is definitely worth checking out. Pig, starring Nicolas Cage, and for a Nicolas Cage movie, this was actually pretty good. Pig is a film that showcases the talent of Nicolas Cage as an actor, who delivers a standout performance in this movie. The film is an intense thriller and drama that makes the most of its small budget. Pig is a simple film that focuses on the script and the characters. Despite being low budget, the film holds up well, with a strong cast led by Nick Cage, of course, as the farmer, Rob, searching for his stolen pig. The dialogue is actually really well written, and the story is easy to follow and simple. Alex Wolff also shines as the truffle hunter who also becomes invested in the search for the pig. Nick Cage gives a restrained performance, showing that he can dial back the crazy when needed. Overall, Pig is a solid movie that proves you don't need a huge budget to make a good film. The crew's focus on the script, dialogue, and casting good actors really pays off. Nobody. Saul Goodman, also known as Jimmy McGill, also known as Bob Odenkirk, also known as Nobody, is an ex-assassin who's roped back into the game after trying to find his daughter's kitty cat bracelet.
Give me the goddamn kitty cat bracelet!
So yeah, fucking awesome action movie. I really enjoyed this one. This is from the same director as the film Hardcore Henry, which is another action film I really enjoyed. But for what it is, I thought it was really well done. Christopher Lloyd was great in this movie. I thought he killed it. That's all I got to say about that. Number 13 is Spider-Man No Way Home. Spider-Man, played by Tom Holland, has been caught by the public. His identity has been exposed, so he goes to Doctor Strange and asks him to remove everyone's memory of Spider-Man being Peter Parker, and that accidentally spawns a bunch of villains from Spider-Man from the multiverse. All the performances in here were really, really fun. Yeah, I've said more than enough about this film. Judas and the Black Messiah, starring Daniel Kaluuya, Lakeith Stanfield, I think that's his name. This movie is about the Black Panthers, not Black Panther. Judas and the Black Messiah is a retelling of true events of the man who betrayed Black Panther party leader Fred Hampton. It's a very brutal and memorable film. The movie looks awesome. It has a really great soundtrack. This is the only film I've seen from Shaka King. I can't say much more else about his film work or his directing style, but this was a really well-made movie. It's a period piece. It captured that really well, not just the visuals, but also, you know, what was going on at the time. It's very historically accurate. The movie is about that time, and it's about racism at that time from the police, and it's also a movie with a lot of violence and gun violence. It's just a really intense and captivating movie that I will remember for a while, hopefully. Dominique Thorne and Dominique Fishback. They were both great. Jesse Plemons as Roy Mitchell. Judas and the Black Messiah, and also The Power of the Dog really put him on the map this year. This movie is super accurate. It feels authentic. The action is engaging. I've read a little bit about the real story of this movie, and this movie's accurate to what happened. Number 11 is Nightmare Alley, directed by Guillermo del Toro, one of my favorite directors. I really like his commentary track on Blade 2.
Where have you been, Whistler?
This is possibly one of the worst scenes ever shot in mankind's history.
Blades in his
Hugh Hefner.
his Hef outfit.
And Whistler went and burned a DVD or a CD, and this made no sense.
Getting into Nightmare Alley, I mean, this is a much different film, definitely a bit more artful and more for the crowd of critics who kind of like something with no action. But something I like about all of his films is they're very visually interesting. I enjoyed watching this in 4K. It's one of my favorite movies I watched last year, purely just based on the visuals. Bradley Cooper is a guy who works at a carnival, but soon finds out there's a bunch of other stuff going on. Like Willem Dafoe is there, and so is Ron Perlman. But then things take a turn as one of the performers gets sick from his alcoholism. Then when Bradley Cooper steals his book full of magic tricks, he has a successful magic career of his own, alongside his assistant Rooney Mara. But then when a nefarious psychiatrist played by Cate Blanchett catches on to his scheme, a bunch of other stuff happens. I don't know if this is as good as The Shape of Water in my opinion. I don't think it is. But that being said, I still think this is a really great movie. And I tend to like noir. It has a lot of the classic trademarks of a noir for me. For example, Bradley Cooper's character in this film is a very flawed kind of anti-hero. Maybe not so much at first, but the more they reveal about the character, the more you realize he's not such a good guy. And that's what made it interesting, I thought. I enjoyed the story, I particularly liked the ending, and I was sure to check out the original Nightmare Alley. I bought the Criterion of it, I gave it to my brother as a gift. We enjoyed that film too, but it's much shorter, and Guillermo del Toro's version I think is a bit better. It's more fleshed out, and all the acting's great. Toni Collette, Cate Blanchett, Rooney Mara. You know, there's certain actors you wish were in it more, like Willem Dafoe. Ultimately, it's just about telling that story. I really enjoyed the film. The Card Counter. The Card Counter is a thriller film that centers around a former military man named William Tell, who has taken up a new profession as a card counter in the world of high-stakes gambling. Along the way, he meets a young player played by Ty Sheridan and takes him under his wing. The story takes a much darker turn from there, especially as it introduces Willem Dafoe's character. Paul Schrader has always been great at writing flawed, mentally unstable protagonists like this. Whether it be Reverend Toller in First Reformed, or even Travis Bickle in Taxi Driver. I just love his screenplays. I love how dark his films get, and something I love about the casting of this film is that it isn't typecast. You know, Oscar Isaac has proven to be a great actor, but then there's Tiffany Haddish in here, who's mostly known for doing comedy, but in here she gives a really good dramatic performance. She wasn't distracting at all in this film. But you know, it still really has this atmosphere that's alluring, and the characters are strong. It's got a lot of political commentary in there that you have to read into. It's just Paul Schrader, and I think he's a great director.
Is it possible to know when one reaches the limit?
Number 9 is Titan. A girl is in a car accident as a child, which fucks up her face. One night she has sex with a car. This is a woman-directed movie from the director of Raw. It's a very unique film. I like how bloody and disturbing it is. It's a very French film. That's what I say about so many French films, but yeah, it's a very French film. I've seen this movie a couple of times now, and I did get a lot out of it, subtextually, I guess, and I do really enjoy the disturbing moments, as well as the performances in this movie. I really enjoyed the actor who played the dad character in this film. Yeah, it looks great, super bloody. Like I said, this is a French movie, so expect a lot of weird shit. Dune. Based on the legendary sci-fi novel series, Dune chronicles the story of Paul Atreides, played by Timothée Chalamet. Paul is plagued with visions and given the prophecy that he will one day have the strength to rule the entire galaxy. Many talented artists and creators, such as Alejandro Jodorowsky, have been trying to get this film made for a long time. They even made a documentary about it called Jodorowsky's Dune, about how the film version would have turned out if it had come together. And this movie was awesome. This is one of the films I got on Blu-ray. I must have ordered the wrong one, or maybe they just sent me the wrong one and they made a mistake. Sent me the David Lynch Dune on Blu-ray, so I don't actually have the Blu-ray of Dune yet. The David Lynch one is really bad. Like, even David Lynch would agree with me that movie's bad. Dune is a highly ambitious film that had the potential to go wrong in many ways. I can't believe they actually pulled it off as well as they did, and I am eager to see how this story concludes. The film is a true testament to the talent of the crew involved, and if you're a fan of Villeneuve's previous work, especially Blade Runner 2049, then you will undoubtedly appreciate the latest addition in his filmography. Then I'm very excited to see part 2, and even if part 2 isn't as good as part 1, I'll probably still enjoy it. The Last Duel. I definitely enjoyed this more than House of Gucci. Ridley Scott's also really good with these, like, period dramas, and he's really good with action. Although there's not a lot of action in this film, it really builds up to The Last Duel. The writing of Adam Driver's character and also Matt Damon's character was really great. And to some extent you sympathized with both of them, which was what the movie was trying to do by having these different viewpoints and telling the story in kind of a Rashomon structure sort of way. Jodie Comer in the movie was also great. She is better in this film than she is in Free Guy, obviously. She has a chance to show that she is actually a really good actress if you give her good material. The movie just did a good job of painting these characters and their relationships, and it's an ambitious story with an ambitious structure, and they were able to do it well. Anyone else trying to tell a story with 3 different perspectives, it would be totally confused, but because it's Ridley Scott, it just all worked, and it was really satisfying at the end when they fought. Ben Affleck was good in this movie. It was one of the best performances he's given in a long time, I thought. And that's because he's working with a good director with a vision. So yeah, it's a good story, good action. If you like medieval knights and that kind of setting and this kind of story. Also, if you're a Ridley Scott fan, check this one out. Number 6 is Drive My Car. Yusuke is a stage actor and director who's also driven around in a red car. Lots of subtlety that you need to pick up on. It's very performance driven, and like, there is a story and a plot. I do feel like the film is constantly moving forward. The fact that this movie takes its time and is willing to just be patient really grounds the world and the drama, and it makes the characters feel very realistic. Capturing real life in a film is very difficult, and the movie had the desired effect it was trying to achieve. It was just a good story with good characters, and if you're paying attention and you're into what's happening, it's one of the best films of the year. I don't think there was anything manipulative about this movie at all. I really like this movie. Red Rocket. Red Rocket is about a loser ex-porn star scrounging off his old friends for cash. And he also bangs an underage girl who works at a donut store.
Excuse me?
It's a really funny film, and it looks great, I feel. Like, there's a lot done with the directing and the way the scenes are blocked and framed and shot that add to the humor of the film and make it funnier. Red Rocket has a section in the middle that's both really entertaining and controversial. The storyline is centered around Mikey's obsession with Strawberry, a 17-year-old donut shop employee. I guess some people won't like that, but the thing is, Mikey's character is intentionally portrayed as unlikable and a screw-up who hurts everyone around him, yet his antics are still amusing to watch. It's a delicate balance that the film strikes, as the humor is offset by the disturbing behavior of the main character. Good use of music as well. Very memorable. It's a very memorable film in a lot of ways. I like how the story builds very naturally. Number 4, The French Dispatch, the Wes Anderson film. I talked about this one in a review, but just to add to my thoughts on it, I really enjoyed the look of this film. A lot of visually interesting things going on here. The giant cast this movie has, like, really makes it fun to watch. There's so many actors in just really small parts. I liked how all the characters were very unique and distinct. Every character, just the way they look, like even just the costumes and parts of the performance, you could really distinguish everyone in the film, and obviously the recognizable actors help with that as well. The film is Wes Anderson's tribute to the New Yorker magazine and its founder and editor, Harold Ross. The film is structured like an issue of the New Yorker. The stories center around the work of the writers and are told in their unique style, held together by a common thread of Alexander Desplat's score and Wes Anderson's singular vision. The first story centers around Moses Rosenthaler, portrayed by Benicio del Toro, a genius artist serving a life sentence for murder, and his love affair with Simone, played by Léa Seydoux, who's also a prison guard. The second whimsical story is about a 1968 student protest in Paris. The final story focuses on a writer's attempt to profile a legendary chef. Anderson's style is distinct and recognizable, with a focus on objects and nostalgia. It's a movie that follows Wes Anderson's style to an extreme degree, and is made up of a dizzying array of intricate parts that move forward relentlessly. Prosaic, everyday objects take on a new meaning in Wes Anderson's world. The film's visuals are stunning, with Wes Anderson utilizing animation, graphics, still lifes, and visual puns. The French Dispatch may be hard to explain, but it's a delight to watch. Despite its complexity, if you're a fan of Anderson's style, this is a film that you probably won't want to miss. The Green Knight. This is another film I talked about. Like a lot of what I like about fantasy is the journey. He stumbles across other characters played by really good actors. There's a lot of great scenes in here. There's a lot to interpret. There's a lot of experimental weird stuff in there, but it doesn't get right into that shit. You know, it builds to it. Like, it starts very grounded, but then it introduces these fantasy elements, and it's a very stylized movie, and I really like films that are stylized. I like films that are more realistic and grounded, like Drive My Car too, but I like films that are also super stylized with the lighting, with like even the camera work and like the sense of humor of this film. Like, it knows its audience, and it's having fun with the fantasy. The film creates a world that is both fantastical and rooted in reality. The cinematography is a feast for the eyes, and it's a testament to Mike Lowry's vision and his attention to detail. The film really wouldn't be complete without the talented cast. Patel brings a lot of heart to the role, making Sir Gawain's character one that you could actually root for. Joining Dev Patel are other talented actors: Joel Edgerton, Alicia Vikander, who brings a unique charm to this movie. Lastly, we have the enigmatic Barry Keoghan. He has a lot of range as an actor, and this character in this film is supposed to be very conniving and slimy. The special effects are great, specifically the effect of the Green Knight himself. Great performance by Ralph Ineson. He has like very, I'm the Green Knight. What? So yeah, Green Knight. Nice. West Side Story. Now this movie's really good. Yeah, I liked it. The film follows the story of two young lovers, Tony, played by Ansel Elgort, and Maria, played by Rachel Zegler, who are caught up in the midst of a turf war between rival gangs in 1950s New York City, and a timeless story of love and tragedy. West Side Story is a film that basically has something for everyone, and it's got all these themes of, you know, the police and poverty and racism and these two dueling factions. You know, in Romeo and Juliet, it's two families, and here it's the Irish and the Spanish. So there's clearly a lot of political subtext here, and there's a lot of stuff going on in this movie, but at the end of the day, it's still a love story. It's a very emotionally engrossing movie, and that's because it's a Spielberg movie. The original musical's like beloved as well, and those songs are. It deserved this kind of respect. It deserved a director like Spielberg who knows how to make something like this, and he did a great job. This is one of my favorite Spielberg movies he's made in a long time. Spielberg's direction is masterful, and he brings a fresh vision to this classic story while staying true to its roots. Spielberg's dad was a huge fan of the original West Side Story, and Spielberg even dedicated this movie to his dad after his dad passed away, so he also had a personal connection to this story and really wanted to tell it. I thought the supporting cast was like amazing. The entire supporting cast did a really great job. The supporting cast was an integral part of this film's success, from the charismatic and dangerous gang leader Bernardo to the tragic character of Anita, played by Ariana DeBus. The supporting cast was definitely one of the standout aspects of this movie. Mike Feist is an exceptional performer who adds immeasurably to the success of West Side Story. It's a film that explores some of the most pressing issues of our time through a timeless story of love and tragedy. At its core, it's a story about racism, poverty, and the struggles of the working class in 1950s New York City. Through its portrayal of the bitter rivalries between the Jets and the Sharks, the film explores the ways in which racial tensions and class differences can divide communities and lead to violence. It highlights the importance of love and understanding as a means of overcoming these divisions. The film also touches on themes of police brutality and the criminalization of immigrant communities through its portrayal of character Lieutenant Schrank, who is tasked with breaking up the gangs but often resorts to heavy-handed tactics. The film raises important questions about the role of law enforcement in society and the impact of systemic racism on marginalized communities. I like the emphasis on them actually having really thick Spanish accents. That's like a huge part of the movie, and I don't think that's in the original at all. Not that that ruins the movie, it's not like a terrible movie, but all of the details they added to this film just make it much better. I would recommend this film to anyone. This is a great movie. I loved it. It has definitely earned its spot on this list. Well, here's my number one. Number one is Cruella. No! Just kidding. Licorice Pizza. Licorice Pizza, directed by Paul Thomas Anderson, takes us back to the San Fernando Valley in the 1970s. The film is full of possibility and adventure as it wanders from one moment to the next, showcasing Paul Thomas Anderson's mastery at navigating tonal shifts from the more comedic to romantic. The film is anchored by the performances of Alana Haim and Cooper Hoffman. Love the soundtrack for this film. Two great lead performances. The movie looks dope. I thought this movie was great, and many critics and film publications thought it was great as well. It's made a lot of top 10 lists. The plot of Licorice Pizza is not the main focus of this film, but instead it is the journey of Alana and Gary. The film handles their age difference in a tasteful and chaste manner that makes sense in the context of the story. Paul Thomas Anderson establishes Gary's maturity early on, with all of the adults in the film treating him as an equal due to his being a longtime child star. In this film, the very loose nature of the story, the fact that it's like kind of goes in all these different directions, it's about just like random stuff happening. It's like kind of like real life, like there's no story in real life. Tied together by those two main characters. Alana Haim in the movie was great. I like that they used her real family in the film. Apparently she'd worked with Paul Thomas Anderson on some music videos. Paul Thomas Anderson directed some music videos for her, as she's a musician, I think, as well. And then they teamed up to make this movie, and really great character they wrote for her. Really great dialogue. And then there's like so many great actors in here that are in really small parts.
Barbra Streisand.
Sand.
Yeah, like sands. Like the ocean, like beaches.
Barbra Streisand?
No, like Streisand.
Sand.
To show you just how much I like the soundtrack, I have the vinyl of it. It just fit this film very well. Paul Thomas Anderson is great with picking music for his movies. The film's score, created by Paul Thomas Anderson's frequent collaborator, Radiohead guitarist Johnny Greenwood, adds an undercurrent of danger to the film, keeping the audience ever so slightly on edge. There's clearly a lot of love and money and thought put into every aspect of this movie, and the same care was paid attention to the period and to making the characters believable and making them kind of sympathetic and realistic. In conclusion, Licorice Pizza is a film that I just did not want to end. Paul Thomas Anderson has harnessed all of his directing trademarks and his love for high drama to tell a surprisingly sweet story that will make you laugh, cry, and leave you wanting more. This movie is funny, ambitious, and my favorite movie of 2021. So those were my best of the year. Now here's some runner-ups that I really liked, but they just didn't make my top 30. The Hand of God, a film directed by Paulo Sorrentino. It was a good coming-of-age film with a very weird sense of humor. I haven't seen the film Youth, which is what this director is known for before making Hand of God. You know, this film has a pretty large cast and everyone was great in it. It had energy, it was unique, and it had some good dramatic moments as well. Some people might think it's weird, but I enjoyed this movie. It looked really great. It was very colorful and vibrant. The locations they chose to shoot in were great. I'd say watch it. It's on Netflix. Wrath of Man from Guy Ritchie. Definitely better than Aladdin. I think he's a really good director. I watched Snatch recently, which I thought was really great. Like, whenever he's making, like, crime stuff, like, I really like The Gentleman, which is very similar to Snatch. It's paced really well, but it's very different from Snatch. It's just a it's more of a standard bank robbing movie. It's kind of predictable in a lot of ways, but also it like in the ways the film needed to work, it really worked. I really enjoyed it, and there's some really good like action stuff, and it's a good action film. I feel it's really good action, and again, a lot like how I like No Time to Die. It's not all action. It's subdued. It's grounded. Lots of character stuff going on. That's like actually engaging. And then it gets into like the crazy, not even crazy action. It's like just shooting. Like it's very believable, very grounded, which makes it feel like way more intense. House of Gucci. It was fine. I don't think it was terrible by any means. Al Pacino was good. Jeremy Irons is good. If you wanted to watch it, I'd say, yeah, maybe you'd enjoy it. Shang-Chi in The Legend of the Ten Rings. I did enjoy the action set piece toward the beginning that involved, him fighting in the bus, and there were some decent performances in here. I really liked the Mandarin in this film. Mostly good cast, although I wasn't really a huge fan of the lead actor. People shit on superhero movies all the time. They say it's dated and people are sick of them and whatever, but this is one that kind of changed it up a little bit. It felt kind of unique and different. I do like that bus action scene at the beginning, but I knew, like, even from watching the trailer, that's going to be in the first 15 minutes of the movie. And the end of this movie with again, it goes into CGI, over the top dragons and all kinds of craziness, and I was not engaged in any of that last act of the film. King Richard, again, it's okay. It's just an Oscar movie, comforting. It has a happy ending. Will Smith was good in it. I thought he gave a good performance. I do remember this scene where they were watching Cinderella, and Will Smith puts on Cinderella because he wants the family to learn a lesson from it. So he starts the movie, and then there's a cut, and the movie's over. So I'm like, what is Cinderella? 3 seconds long? Clearly, it was a editing decision. They didn't want you to sit there through the entirety of Cinderella, but it just could have been edited better. It could have dissolved, or it could have cut to a shot outside of the house, or maybe another scene or something. Next, I'm going to talk about 2 animated family films, both of which I really liked. First one is called Encanto from Disney, which is a heartwarming family film about a special family with special powers who live together in a special house. The animation was great, and I love the design work of the film. The musical numbers by Lin-Manuel Miranda were just okay. On the bright side, though, I thought the voice cast was great, and the film pays homage to Colombian culture pretty well, I thought. Not that I know a ton about that. The characters were relatable, and the story has a good message about self-discovery, and overall I'd say it's a decent movie to watch. There's also The Mitchells versus the Machines. The film has non-stop humor, which didn't always work for me, but it is pretty relentless in its pacing, and that kept it engaging, especially I think for little kids. They would really like this movie. The film has a strong commentary about our relationship with technology. There's some really great design work in this movie, but I would expect nothing less from the creative team that made the Spider-Verse movie, Phil Lord and Chris Miller. If you like their stuff, definitely check this out. Jungle Cruise, it was a good summer movie. I think I was excited to get back to the movies. Black Widow, it doesn't really stick with me, and that's a lot of the worst Marvel movies for me. Not really that funny, the action's not that great. In fact, the action is mostly just CGI, kind of bland, whatever. And the characters I didn't care much for. Why does anyone care about Black Widow? She's been dead for years. Last Night in Soho. This is a horror comedy that fails to deliver on both counts. The story follows Ellie, played by Thomasin McKenzie, who moves to London to fulfill her dreams of becoming a fashion designer, but is haunted by the ghost of her mother. Ellie's adventures in Soho are initially set up nicely, but the film falls apart with a befuddling second half. The film's antagonist, played by Matt Smith, who most recently starred in HBO's House of the Dragon and the film Morbius alongside Jared Leto, is in this movie now, and he's not well developed. Not my favorite Edgar Wright movie. I really wasn't even looking forward to it. The story wasn't engaging to me. I mean, that's fair criticism. The Many Saints of Newark. Upon watching the film again multiple times and trying to find depth where there was none, the film has become completely frustrating to me. I don't like this movie. I think it's really bland, and it can fuck off. Don't Look Up. This isn't funny. This isn't interesting. It isn't teaching me anything. And it's all hinged on this thing that's not even real. It's like a comet coming to destroy the earth. The Big Short, that movie, it does treat you like you're kind of stupid. That's kind of the joke of The Big Short. But also, it's based on these real events, It's explaining very complicated, like, Wall Street stock stuff and the housing market and how it collapsed, and, you know, has all these celebrities trying to explain it, make comparisons to certain things. They have Margot Robbie in a bathtub, you know, keep you interested. They have, like, famous chef, like, comparing cooking fish and, like, taking the parts of the fish that are not so valuable, putting it in a stew, and, you know, that's kind of like a CDO with, but, you know, they're kind of treating you like you're dumb, but at the same time, these things are very complicated. They're playing with the audience a bit. I wouldn't say that movie has contempt for its audience like this movie does. And if you found it funny, that's fine. Maybe you like obnoxious humor. And if you do, be sure to subscribe to this channel, The King's Man. I liked it a bit better than Golden Circle. I felt like Ralph Fiennes or Ray Fiennes was a fun addition to the franchise. It's too freaking long. It's too dragged out. None of it had an emotional impact on me, really. It was just, I was basically slogging through it. I want to enjoy this. I get there's something going on here, but it's not that interesting. I hope he, like, makes something else after. It's not a Kingsman movie. I'm sick of Kingsman. I'm sick of it. I don't feel I need any more of it. Old. I reviewed this movie, stupid as hell. Let There Be Carnage is number 37. Slightly better than the first Venom, but that's not saying a lot. And it's just, like, stupid shit. Malcolm and Marie doesn't do much for me. I like the actors. I don't like Sam Levinson, really. I've yet to meet a person who's like, oh yeah, Sam Levinson, he's great. I've yet to meet that person. They must be out there. Every character is basically just a mouthpiece for Sam Levinson. Mortal Kombat, pretty inoffensive. I'd say for a video game movie, it's actually pretty good, but that's not really high praise. I feel like the audience who wants this kind of thing, they get what they want. They get the action, they get the blood. I do also appreciate how all the actors are Asian and not just a bunch of white people, like in the original Mortal Kombat films. Willy's Wonderland, Nicolas Cage hamming it up. You know, at least this movie has that. It has Nicolas Cage, and he's, like, basically playing up how, like, this is, like, one of his bad performances, but he's always, even if he's bad, he's always at least interestingly bad, which is something that's at least memorable about this film. The Tomorrow War, kind of talked about this already, so I'm gonna move on. Boss Level, this is another kind of guilty pleasure. It wasn't that terrible, like. So those were movies that I didn't really like so much. Now we're going to go through some movies that I really didn't like. Ice Road, the best movie I've seen from him recently, because I've been watching a lot of his movies. This is definitely the best one I've seen. It's, like, the most entertaining. And Amber Midthunder as well. She's in the new Prey film, I believe. You know, she's in Hell or High Water. She's in the show Legion with Dan Stevens. Not the movie Legion, the show that's based on the Marvel thing. Lawrence Fishburne. Like, he's barely in it, though. I'm gonna spoil Ice Road. Sorry if you were really looking forward to Ice Road. He gets his, like, leg stuck on a rope. That scene was really funny to me. Like, I was like, this is hilarious. Like, this is not that people dying is funny. I'm just saying that scene, the way it was executed, just something about the editing and the sound and the way he's, like, yelling, like, I'm stuck, or whatever. Like, kind of funny. I also watched The Marksman with Liam Neeson, which was so boring, I'm not even gonna talk about it. It's just terrible. Definitely worse than Ice Road. At least Ice Road was funny. Godzilla vs. King Kong. From a big budget film, from a big studio, I expect a bit more than this. This is just, like, it's such crap. It's such crap. Like, you get to see Godzilla and King Kong fight for 2 minutes or whatever, then the rest of the movie is just bad dialogue. Demonic, directed by Neil Blomkamp, who is a director I like, but this film, you know, it was bad. It was just bad. Army of the Dead, Zack Snyder movie, no. Finch. The movie Finch, this wasn't as bad as Greyhound, in my opinion, which is a movie I was pretty harsh on the year before. Also an Apple Plus movie. You know, whatever. Tom Hanks and a robot. Number 44, Cry Macho. He needs to retire. I would say, like, maybe he has one great movie in it left, but he hasn't made a great movie in freaking years. For some reason, there are critics who I respect who like this movie. I'm like, why? Like, this movie is boring. Halloween Kills the franchise. I mean, Halloween Kills. You watch people get killed in funny ways. You're like, oh man, that was cool. But the rest of the movie is total fluff, filler. The dialogue in this movie, like, they keep saying, evil dies tonight, evil dies tonight. It's so bad. The Matrix Resurrections, this is pretty bad. The nostalgia, like self-awareness did not work for me. All of the style of those original Matrix movies, like the bullet time with the camera spinning around, that's completely absent in this movie. The action is bland. And Prisoners of the Ghostland. So I took a break from recording just so I could get the Blu-ray for you, which is right here. And look at the Blu-ray. It stars Nicolas Cage and Sofia Boutella, but look at the bottom. It says, "The wildest movie I've ever made." And the quote is from Nicolas Cage himself. They literally have a quote from the actor that's in the movie on the cover, and it says, "This is the greatest movie ever." Like, and it's Nicolas Cage, of course. This movie, it was so odd. Like, it's a bad movie, but you could tell they were really trying. It's one of those bad movies where they really were trying, like, very strange and in ways unique film, but ultimately, yeah, I just didn't connect with anything that was happening in it. Dear Evan Hansen, one of the most puzzling aspects of this movie was the casting of Ben Platt as the teenage protagonist, Evan Hansen. He could be a really talented singer and actor, but in this role, he simply just does not look young enough to convincingly play a high school student. The characters lack any depth or complexity. In addition, the film's use of social media as a plot device feels so forced and contrived. For what this was, and for the audience this was trying to be made for, I don't think teenagers will connect to it. I don't think they'll relate to the Evan Hansen character. I don't think they'll like these songs, because I didn't like these songs. Everything about the cinematography and the production design is underwhelming. The shots feel uninspired. The musical numbers are kind of lackluster, and while there may be fans of the stage musical, and I'll give them some credit, maybe that is better than the movie that I just watched, there are some problems that I think do carry over into that original musical as well. If we're just going to talk about the story, I really don't think it handles the darker aspects of adolescent mental health well. I get they tried to have some hope and positivity in there, but it feels very forced and cliche. Also, some of the characterizations can be very shallow and stereotypical. At the end of the movie, when he emails that picture to Amanda Stenberg's character, and that was also contrived, like, why did he send it to her like that? This whole story just made no sense to me. It did not work. Cruella, I can't stand these freaking cash grab Disney live action remakes or whatever the hell they're doing, also crossed in with a villain movie. It is the most cynical marketing tactic now. They're gonna keep making villain movies until people stop seeing them. Cruella is a bad movie. All the acting was bad. The story's completely uninspired. Don't watch this film. F9. This franchise needs to stop. It just needs to end, and it's really bad. It's really boring, and I hate this franchise. At this point, it's become such a zombie. There's nothing going on. They just keep adding characters to it, like John Cena. They don't kill off any characters because the actors want to stay in contract for like a long time, and like it's just car chases with no purpose or tension or meaning behind it. It's like basically just watching like a kid play with his car. It's like bam, 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 bam. And you're watching that for 2.5 hours, except that is somehow less like annoying and corporatized than this film is. Eternals, the most boring Marvel film ever. This movie is dull as shit. Lame, too many characters, none of them do anything, none of them have any development. They're flashing back thousands of years, and it makes the characters completely unrelatable, and yet the characters are talking with British accents and using modern day terminology, like, yeah, what's up, dude, even though they're in ancient Mesopotamia. It's fucking awful. This is one of the worst Marvel movies, probably the worst one, simply based on the fact that it's 2.5 hours long. It is impossible to care about the characters. The story does not make a lick of sense, and the movie is way too dark. It's so dark and dreary, you don't even feel like you're watching a film from Marvel Studios. Yeah, fuck Eternals. Don't ever bring them back. Also, that post-credit scene, it's gotta be the worst post-credit scene I've ever seen. Not just in a Marvel movie, but period. Red notice, the actors don't have a good script to work with, so they just have to fall back on their traits that you see in all of their other movies. such as Ryan Reynolds with his self-referential meta humor, acting like Deadpool again, and as it stands, it's pretty much the most cliche, predictable, boring spy movie you could possibly imagine, other than Charlie's Angels. Spiral from the Book of Saw, bad direction for the franchise to go. This movie looks really cheap, and aside from that, the acting was bad and the story was stupid. It doesn't capture anything about what made the Saw movies work. Thunder Force with Melissa McCarthy and Octavia Spencer. This is a big piece of crap. Don't watch it. Free Guy. Yeah, Free Guy. I didn't like it. There's just a lot about the film that was not funny and way too kiddie. Like, way too cotton candy fluff for me. I saw this in theaters for some reason. I saw it in IMAX. And that's gotta be like the biggest waste of money I think I've ever... That's like the biggest waste of $30 I've ever spent. I did not realize this movie would be like so kiddie. Like, it's made for like, it's a family movie. It's not made for like me at all. Like, I was expecting something just a little more mature. I'm not saying like violence or whatever, but just like a little more edge. Just a little more something going on. This movie is like total fluff. It's way too safe. It plays everything way too safe. The movie's just not funny at all. It's the same crap as the Lego movie. It's the same story that a normal guy, he feels like, well, he meets a girl, and they fucking do a bunch of shit that's boring, and stop just remaking the Lego movie. Come up with a new story. And I can't stand the freaking Fortnite crap in this movie. It's like, it starts with a fucking airdrop. Like, cause that's how Fortnite is. When you play Fortnite, you jump out of the sky. So when they make the movie, like, oh, kids like Fortnite, we need to start the movie with people airdropping. People jump out of the sky, because that's what they do in Fortnite. This movie's for kids. Like, I see right through it. Cinderella, this is an absolutely horrifying film. I'm not even kidding. It's the scariest movie of the year. The scene where James Corden is like half mouse, half human head, or whatever the hell. That was more scary than Lamb, than Malignant, than Saint Maude, Titan. It was scarier than all of those movies. This one image.
Let's get loud.
Oh, wow.
Chaos Walking, my first viewing of it, which was the beginning of that year. It was the only time I saw it, and all I remember about it was that it was really terrible. It had a really dumb story from what I could remember. Something about in the future, people can like telepathically communicate with each other, but only the men can do that. Except for Daisy Ridley, who runs away with the Jonas brother and Tom Holland, and they go on an adventure, and it's fucking really stupid. Another big studio movie that I would say is the worst studio movie of the year is Space Jam: A New Legacy. This is the most cynical corporate dumpster trash I've seen in a long time. It is literally a bunch of references to things you know. Do you know Game of Thrones? Do you know Rick and Morty? Do you know the Looney Tunes? Do you know Casablanca? Do you know, like, and a million references? But there's no story. There's nothing to tie it together. It's basically like watching Epic Movie or like one of those Friedberg and Seltzer movies where there's absolutely no substance to it other than making references to The Matrix and making references to Twitter. It's terrible. Thanks for watching. We're already going long here, so I'll just go. Also, I just wanted to say, check out my podcast, Ralph the Movie Maker podcast. I started last year. It's really good. We just talked about the film Megan. We also talk about older movies. We mostly talk about older movies. But we talk about new stuff sometimes. That's all. But I'm just glad this video's over, you know? Because I've been working on it. I'm just glad it's over. All right. Bye.